So, this is the operator. I'll play you my track first. So, these are the sounds I made today, and you can make sounds like this today also. So, let's get started with just a little bit of theory. So, the operator is it's an FM synth. So, I will explain to you what that means, and then we're going to make our first sound, which is going to be a kick drum. So, FM stands for frequency modulation. Frequency modulation is, imagine you had a knob that changed the pitch of a note and you turned it. Wow, wow, right? So you could do this with an LFO. Let me illustrate. We'll just do a basic operator here. Default. Zoom in, thank you. Okay. So, frequency modulation. You have a tone. This is the carrier signal. And then you modulate it with a modulating signal. So I'm going to illustrate with an LFO, which is basically low frequency modulation. I turn on LFO, and I'm modulating the pitch with another waveform, with a sine wave. If I turn up that speed, it stops sounding like a change in frequency. That sounds more or less like a solid tone, but it's got some different harmonics. It has a whole different color. So unfortunately, we can't turn up this knob anymore on the LFO, or I could really sweep you all the way up into hearing register, and you could see how when the frequency, when the pitch LFO gets fast enough, you stop hearing changes in pitch, but you hear changes in timbre. So FM synthesis is all about these two things working together. You have a carrier frequency that is getting modulated, the pitch of it is getting modulated by another frequency, the modulating signal. So that other signal can be any waveform going any speed. But you get crazy sounds if you modulate it at a rate that is inharmonic to your carrier. So what does inharmonic mean? There are relationships between frequencies that are related to the overtone series, and if you keep your carrier and your modulator, so in this example, this is going to be the carrier, and it's going to be modulated by this. So these are just two different oscillators. This is our carrier, and we're going to modulate it by this second waveform. It's a sine wave also, and it is in an integer relationship, meaning the frequency of this pitch, I'm playing A440, so the frequency of this pitch times 1 is the frequency of the modulating pitch. If it's times 1 or times 2 or times 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, if it's times an integer, then the modulation is going to give you something that has a clear sense of tone. It has a centered pitch. It's like a good in-tune sound. So I'm going to, here's our carrier frequency, and as I turn up level, I'm going to be modulating this carrier frequency with a modulating frequency at exactly the same speed. Listen to how it changes the sound. And let's actually take a look at the overtones so you can connect this idea of overtones to something visual. So a sine wave has no overtones. But if I turn this up, it develops resonances. I don't have an oscilloscope. That would be really great. If you could point me to a free, quick to install oscilloscope, we could take a look. But we can see the overtones being added. So this is 440, the fundamental frequency. The second overtone is 880. And then 440 times 3, 440 times 4, 440 times 5. Yeah, thanks, Hubert. Drop me a link. So we can get a richer tone on this fundamental frequency by turning up the modulation by the carrier, by the modulating frequency, and we can get different colors by dialing up coarse. So this is going to modulate this with different overtones of its frequency. The coarse knob is for integer multiples, for harmonic relationships. We have the fine-tune knob for inharmonic relationships. So these are ratio relationships between the carrier and the modulator that are not even round integers. And you'll hear how it messes with the sound. What it's actually making are... Oh, shoot, I'm blocking the plug-in with my camera. Thank you, guys. Transition, move it, transition. Thanks. Okay. So down here, we've got our carrier wave. This is the fundamental frequency. This is our modulating signal. And you can do the amount that it modulates is the level. And harmonic relationships in the frequency of this can be dialed in with coarse. And each of these is going to accentuate different overtones. And then fine tune lets you control, lets you do non-integer relationships between these, so inharmonic relationships. So take a listen. The sound is much less funky. Sorry, much more funky, much less harmonic. Musical sounds that do have a fair amount of inharmonicity are bells. Bells sound the way that they do because they have out-of-tune overtones based on their physical shape. And that's what this is giving it. It's giving it out-of-tune overtones. And it's actually creating something. You'll notice that there's a pitch higher and a pitch lower. It actually creates what they call side bands, where there's the band of the fundamental frequencies and then a band higher and sometimes also lower, or maybe always both. So if you want clean mixings of sounds, just use the coarse knob, probably in its lowest couple of values to use the first few overtones. But if you want to add some nastiness, use the fine tune. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment just to play with these two things. So we'll leave level down on the top two and just have your fundamental frequency and your modulating frequency. And turn up level on modulating frequency, play with coarse values, play with fine values. And then practice dialing it in different amounts in level. Go ahead and do this for about 2 minutes. I haven't finished notes for today, and honestly, I'm kind of at a sprint. I'm not sure I'll come back to it for a while, but what I have written is this introduction explanation, so you can review up here if you want to hear anything again. Okay. So one thing I want to point your eye to is this icon here. So this is representing how these four operators are modulating each other. So if they're in this mode, cascading mode, it means this modulates this, and this modulates this and this, and this modulates this, this, and this. These are all modulating in a flow down to here. But you have different possibilities. You could switch over to here, and you just hear two separate notes. So now this isn't modulating this note, but it's playing as its own oscillator. So don't get overwhelmed with the routing yet. We're going to be working a lot in this mode, but generally you can, I just do this by ear. Click around, find one that sounds the best. They're each going to do different versions of your same sound. And as you get more understanding about it, you'll have more ideas about how to do it on purpose. So right now we're going to be in cascading mode. Okay. So let's make our first sound. We're going to make a kick drum. After that, we're going to make a bass. And so the kick drum is going to introduce us just to the general areas of this. And I'm going to assume most of you were in my last couple of classes. And so basic ideas about envelopes, LFOs, filters, pitch envelopes won't need explaining from scratch. But if you do have questions, if I'm going a little too fast, you can tell me to slow down and explain something, or you can ask a question in the chat and one of the super knowledgeable, helpful people in the class can help you out. Good idea. Cool. So our first sound is going to be a kick drum. So we want to start with a low fundamental frequency. So I'm just playing a low sine tone on my keyboard. The next thing to do is give it a pitch envelope. So basically all drums, when you hit them, the pressure of your stick or beater bends the surface membrane of the drum, tightening it, which makes the pitch higher. So while you're making contact, you're actually bending the note up. And when your beater leaves, then the membrane relaxes and the pitch drops down. So we want to mimic that with the pitch envelope. So click over here to pitch envelope, and then you can draw a shape. We're going to do like a fast falling. And to apply this, we have to turn up this knob. So now you hear that characteristic attack of a synthy kick drum, where it's actually just a fast pitch bend down. Everybody go do this. So you're playing a low note on your operator, on the bottom operator, and we've turned on pitch envelope. We've made a fast falling. You can change the speed by pulling the square. And turn up pinch up envelope here to apply this filter to the note. Okay, the next thing that we want to do, as I hold down the note, we hear the tone continue. We don't want that. A kick drum hits and quits. So we can change the envelope of this. Click back over to the A operator and click over onto envelope, and then we'll draw a shape. We want to pull this all the way down, so sustain is negative infinity. And then we want to pull in decay. That's a better note. I'm playing now an octave even lower. And this decay time is basically like how much warm after tone do we want. So go ahead and do this. Operator A, envelope, dial in a shape like this. Okay, so a kick drum actually has three components. Pretty much any kick drum that you have heard, especially if it's synthesized, but it's all just modeling a real kick drum. There's actually three components to the sound. So there's the subtone, which is what we've created here. But then there's, and that's really peaks down below 100 hertz. But next there's some kind of smacky thumpiness that there's just some more energy around here. So to get that, we can just dial up level on our modulator here. So way up, and we have a lot more overtones and a lot less fundamental frequency. So we just want to dial in somewhere between here and here, where it gives us more kind of punchiness. That sounds good to me. So here it is off, real low. Here it is on, and it's got more body. So go ahead and do this. Dial up level on operator B until you like the balance of low tone and thump. Yes, Euclid. Pitch, envelope effects, all of the oscillators right. Matty Few, if your sound's more like a blip than a thump, play it a couple of octaves lower. If I play mine up high, it sounds like this. And if I go way down, it sounds like this. Yeah, let's talk about envelopes here. But first, I want to answer a question about the instrument. So you can get a blank operator just by grabbing operator and dropping it on a track instead of pulling a preset. So envelopes. Since all of these are flowing, since these are all modulating A because of this cascading stack arrangement, this envelope is going to be the overall envelope of the sound. But each operator does have its own envelope shape as well. So we could, for example, dial up this punchiness. I don't know why we would do that in this case, but say you had a different instrument where turning this up adds brightness basically to the sound, and maybe you want that to fade in. So you can create an envelope for a particular one of these modulators. So we've now done low tone and we've done thump. Now we need some high frequency. So there's usually some kind of click. And so I'm going to turn this up. Some click we want to have as noise. So let's get our second oscillator here. So I'm on number C, letter C, and I go over here to wave, and I can choose noise white. And here I maybe do want the envelope to be different. I don't want it to be this kind of snare buzzing thing that lasts for a long time. I want just a really short click at the beginning of the sound. And then I just mix it, dial in the level that sounds right to me. So that is your kick drum. Sub layer, thump layer, and noise click layer. Go ahead and try this out. Get one that you like, and then we will make a bass. Actually, before we go on to bass, I'm just going to show you quickly how you can vary this to get a snare and a hi-hat. I'm not going to give you time to do it, but I'm just going to show you to enhance your understanding. So a snare is a higher pitch, similar idea. Higher pitch, maybe less pitch envelope. And then for our noise layer, we can give it, so what happens on a snare drum is you hit it and then the snare buzzes a little bit later. So I'm giving on my noise layer some attack, and then it'll keep ringing. Like this. And then you can mix the levels and then play with different routings until you get one that sounds right. Oh, here's something you should definitely do pretty much any time you make something. We're just going to make these sound instantly better by going to the filter and turning shaper on. You can pick your flavor and then turn up drive. So there's way too much tone on this snare. Maybe I want... That feels good. And so you can think of the filter shaper as being a thing that glues the whole sound together. It just saturates it a little bit and really helps the sound blend and become one thing. So that's a snare, and a hi-hat, you could imagine, is a lot more about the noise and a lot less about the pitch. There we go. So we have these two layers being the click of the stick, really short, just being the click of the stick on the metal, and then the metal ringing with the noise. Okay, but let's make a bass now. I learned a lot of this stuff from one super awesome tutorial who walks you through a ton of different sounds really clearly. So I can point you to that too if you feel like this is going too fast and you want to see more examples and be able to stop and pause and go at your own pace. Okay, so let's make a bass. This is not in that video, so okay. So check this out. We've got our low sine wave. Maybe drop coarse to 0.5. And then you can add some of this in and you have some low. Let me grab our visualizer packet here. And our EQ. So here's one fundamental frequency. Now if I drop coarse to 0.5, we're dropping that one an octave, and then we can dial up the second one to get a whole range of overtones there. And then you can dial up the others. And it's cool to watch the waveform change too. You can see how we get a more complex waveform when we do more frequency modulation. And we'll get even different results if we change the waveform on some of these. So I'm gonna try like a saw wave. That's a nice kind of modulation. What if I do noise here? It's kind of nice, but it doesn't modulate the timbre so much. So I'm gonna try a square here. And this one again was a saw. So just to illustrate this cascading signal flow a little bit, notice that if I have this one turned all the way down and turn this one up, nothing happens. This is modulating this, but if this isn't happening, then it doesn't flow down to here. So I'm gonna do one more thing and then I'll let you practice. So basically a bass or a lead or any other monophonic instrument, you want to set up like this. So you can click to the global shell over here, turn voices to 1, and then in the pitch envelope panel, turn glide on. You can get that nice bassy glide. I'm also maybe going to make my envelope just a little softer up front. Cool. So go ahead and do this. I'll talk through it again if you didn't get it. So what I should have done first is set it up to be a bass, to be a monophonic instrument. So you go to the global panel, voices 1. And then you go to the pitch panel and you turn glide on. Then just play with the levels of the different modulating oscillators. And maybe you want to dial in a couple of low numbers in coarse as well. And you'll just get different modes of modulation, even fine tune. Let's see how about making it nasty. Yeah. So we can have this one as the kind of like screechy, squelchy one. I'll give you another minute to try this out. If you want to have more fun, you can always map this to your MIDI controller. So I'm going to map this. If you haven't mapped to a MIDI controller before, you have to first go into Preferences, Link MIDI, and turn on Remote for that device. So that's my Minilab, and I have it turned on. Then you can just hit Command M and click on anything and touch the controller on your device. So I want that one to be set. And I can play a note. And experiment with my different knobs. Okay, now I'm gonna write a simple bass line. I'm just gonna make random notes, 2 beats long each, and I'll fix them if they sound weird. That one. Okay. So make yourself a real simple bass line. You just want some sound to go automatically to play against. Okay, come on back. So I want to show you how you can create dynamic, exciting bass lines like this one. I don't know what... This was sounding a lot bassier in my headphones. Anyway, so I would mess with the sound to make this warmer, or maybe just my headphones aren't doing bass down there. But yeah, so here's the lick that I made before class. Oh, I see. Automation's not running. Yeah, so this is the sound. So what I did here was just automate those oscillator levels. Watch. It's pretty messy, but I started to have some musical ideas with it, and I think you will too when you start playing with it. So here's what you should do next. Switch into automation mode by pressing A. If this doesn't get you into automation mode, you can click here. If it didn't happen, it's because you have your keyboard turned on. So turn that off and A will work, or you can toggle automation mode here. And so we want to be automating these 3 layers. So I'm going to click on level, and I see here oscillator B level is selected. Check this out. You can just hit the plus, and it'll create a new lane for this. And then you can click on the next level, level C, plus, level D, plus. So now these are here stacked in the same order that I have here. And you can start inventing. You could just play, or you could have ideas like each of my notes I want to have a shape like this. Solo this guy. So there's like a swell of whatever's buzzing above it here on each note, and you can copy automation really easily. Command D to duplicate. Maybe ramp up into a note. Make it swell. Maybe make this swell repeat every 3/8 notes. Or maybe do triplets. Command 3 gets you triplets. Command 2 makes your grid wider, so I'm seeing 8th note triplets here, and you can make a shape, duplicate. Yes. And then for my next layer, let's just hear what it does. Maybe this I want more kind of smooth curve, so I can grab my pencil, turn off the grid with Command 4, and just draw some fluctuation. Or maybe little rhythmic things like selecting this, dragging down, maybe up actually. that. Maybe that'll sound better in a different place. So just play around. You can also make shapes, clean shapes, by selecting an amount of time and control clicking and doing one of these waveforms. So maybe this goes like this on every beat. Not crazy about that. But you get the idea. And I don't like this. So you could keep doing this and create any kind of detail work that you want in your couple of layers to create a dynamic bass sound. This is worth spending some real time on. I'm going to give you 3 minutes now, and then we'll end class officially, and then I'll stick around for a little bit and we'll make a couple of more sounds. So here's 3 minutes to work on automation. Hit me with questions and we'll loop back. Okay. Hope you had something like this going on. it took me a little while to start knowing what kind of choices I wanted to make. And again, I did this not as quickly, not as patiently as I should have, but I did start having ideas of like rhythmic things that I wanted to do, which layers sounded better to just be kind of like free flowing and which ones more choppy, but do this by ear. And also do it by note. Think about how each of the notes has its own life. And so some notes can like be ramping up in the other layers in modulation, some can be ramping down, but you'll probably want to align some of your automation curves note for note. Okay, if you have to go at 2, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate you showing up. I really appreciate your comments and emails and donations. I'm feeling motivated and excited about this class these days. It's been really fun learning about Operator today, and I hope this was helpful for you as well. I'm finally not afraid of Operator. I'm going to go, let's see, Saturday, Jacob Schulman has given us a project that uses only Operator, and so I thought that we could take a look at it this week and apply our new skills to it. That's Saturday, and then I forget what's next week. Maybe I'll do rhythms class. I forget what's on the schedule, but yeah, I also just want to put on your calendars, I'm doing another concert on next Wednesday through Experimental Sound Studios, which is a really awesome channel that you all should check out. I'm going to paste the link here. ESS is a venue in Chicago that's really awesome. And they are doing Twitch concerts every night of really unique musicians. Experimental Sound Studio. So that's not it. Experimental Sound Studio. Anyway, I'll find this and post it in a second. It's here on Twitch. Got it. Okay. Here we go. So I'm doing a concert next Wednesday, but the concerts every night have been awesome. And I'm doing it with 2 of my students, my programming students. We're going to do a whole set of all coded music. So it's not going to be the same stuff that I did last week. It's going to be all stuff that I've written in Super Collider, music programming language. I'm also going to be debuting a new controller, or actually an old controller that I've gotten working for the first time, which is the Manta by Jeff Snyder. And I've been working really hard on a new environment for making some beautiful, slow piano music with this thing. So that's coming up next Wednesday. More classes next week. Stay tuned. Follow this channel if you want to see updates. You can also schedule for private lessons and email list and stuff down below. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to make 1 or 2 more sounds here for those of you who want to stick around and practice. Cool. Let's make my strings one again. Yeah, I'll answer this question. Copy and paste automation. So first you have to be in automation mode. So you're seeing the lines. Then you can select time. So don't grab the automation itself, and don't be near it, though this is really handy. If you're near it, you can grab a whole segment. You'll see the segment light up. But grab away from it and drag a certain amount of time. And then you can Command D to duplicate, copy, click somewhere else and paste. Let's hear this again. Yeah, so this is the one that I just whipped up in class, but let me show you the one that I did more thoroughly. Someone's asking me to play it again. I also automated chorus on it, so that's what's changing the width. So it's really focused here and then widens out like here. So that's another way you can add some stereo width motion, automating dry wet on a chorus. I also did overdrive and a compressor and EQ to give it just kind of a color. Remember, I just want to say this again, filter, shaper, choose one of these. I should have done that on my new operator here, which was this guy. So if I turn on filter and do shaper, it's just going to get better. Look, you can even see how the shaper is shaping the overall sound. We've got it's making it bigger and applying edges. So hard. Am I on the right thing? Soft is much more rounded. Yeah. Okay, so let's make this string sound. So strings, I'll make a new operator. Okay, so strings, let's just think through what are the properties of a string sound. So a string sound is kind of buzzy. So I'm going to start with a saw wave. So you'll notice you have these different saw waves. They just have different numbers of overtones. And you can actually draw in your own overtones here. But I want to use a saw wave like that. Yeah, so the tutorial that was really helpful for me, I just pasted in the class notes. Hold on, let me grab it. Here you go. Cool. So we've got this kind of buzzy sound. Playing a string, there's a slow fade in. That sounds kind of nice. So now let's think about making a whole string section. So there are some notes, there are cellos, there are violas, there are violins. So I'm going to turn coarse down here. So this is down an octave, and then here, and then here. And these are all modulating each other right now, when actually we probably want them to be in parallel, or at least in the box. Oh, and we need to turn these up. Also, check this out. If you make a shape in one, you can click into another one, click anywhere on it, and say copy from oscillator 1, oscillator A. So I'm going to make all of mine sawtooth with this same fade in. Dang it. Thanks. I got to just move that permanently. Okay. So I'll show you copying again. So once you make one layer, one of your things, if you want the others to have the same properties, you can just go into that panel, control click, and say which one you want to copy from. So I copied my buzzy saw wave with the slow attack into each of my operators. And then I want to put them in different octaves. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, yeah, it gives us overtones in octaves. So loud. So now that we have all of these going on, we want to, we can pull back the volume on each one of them, since now they're being added together. And maybe they all have slightly different attacks to give a little more variety. So this to me sounds more like an organ than a stringed instrument, partially because it doesn't have any pitch change. So let's turn on the LFO and give it a little vibrato. So that's a little strong, but I'll dial it back a little from there. And then maybe I'm going to apply the LFO only to the top two, so I get a little chorusing against itself. This here. So check it out. The LFO, you can tell it which of the operators you want it to control just by turning them on and off. You could also say I want it to control the filter, or you can have the LFO control any of these other parameters under destination B. So this is sounding a little more string-like. I think we also want a bit of release, so when I lift up the keys, it doesn't disappear immediately. So I'm going to turn this up. And I'm going to do the same on each of these. So that's, let's just copy the whole envelope, the whole envelope. Now we can get a little more richness to the sound by turning up spread. So this just spreads things out put a bunch of reverb on it. It's a little buzzy for me. It's a little, so I'm gonna turn down the higher harmonics. And that's our string sound. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to make this string sound. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock and let you guys work and ask me questions. Let me know if you want me to talk through any of it again. I'm sure nobody would mind hearing something a second time. So let's spend the next 5 minutes working on a string sound. Okay, hope you got some strings. Now that you've done a couple, I want you to try to figure one out for yourself. So here's the idea. Let's make a flute sound. So I'm going to talk through what I think the ingredients of a flute sound are. There's the tone, which is a kind of round, hollow tone, not lots of buzzing overtones, but something much more mellow, like maybe a sine or a square wave. And there's rather a lot of vibrato usually on a note. So you can use the LFO to do some vibrato. So there's the tone, and then there's the air. And the air might just be a noise layer. I mean, air, noise. That's what you should do. There should be a layer for noise. And there can also be on a flute a really percussive attack at the beginning. So I'm thinking that I'm going to try a kind of low-level air noise over the whole thing. But then also a noise layer with a really fast envelope like this for the like tu, tu at the beginning of the sound. What else might a flute sound have? There's that attack. There's the air over the whole thing. Well, the air may not be steady. It might not be shh, but might be like shh. I don't know. So try to get some motion into the air and into the note. So if you want to take this on as a challenge, go ahead and dive in and do it. I'm going to try it as well, and I'm going to not talk my way through it, but you can watch if you want to watch. take one more minute and then talk you through my thought process as I built this perhaps acceptable sound. Flute-like. Okay, I'm going to start talking through my thought process in putting this sound together. So first I tried a sine wave to be my fundamental tone. That was a little boring and artificial, so I put the LFO on it and dialed it down to a subtle and not sickening amount of vibrato. Maybe faster would be nice. Faster and smaller. And then I thought about the envelope. So if it plays right away like this, it sounds like an organ. But if it fades in, that feels nice and organic. Okay, but it's really mellow sound. Remember, the sine wave doesn't have any overtones, and a flute definitely does. So then I brought in a second wave to modulate the first. Thanks. Hopefully the balance is better now. I'll bring down this as well. So I wanted to make my mellow core of the sound brighter. So I tried grabbing a sawtooth on this second one. This will modulate the first one. And dialed it up. And somehow the interaction between the sawtooth and the sine wave is giving this kind of like crackling fluctuation that is a nice textural touch. So this is a nice idea. Maybe it gets brighter, so the initial attack is a little dark and then it brightens, just to give a little motion over the shape of it. So I'm going to bring in this brightening modulation layer a little later. So the sound kind of opens up. Not sure if that's flute-like really, but it's something. Okay, then there's the noise layer. So I wanted the noise so here's just white noise, and I wanted to pick a modulation routing where this air really kind of came through. It was an audible sound. It's not a modulation of these sounds. It's its own sound. So I picked this guy, so C and D are their own thing. Though I actually want D to also be its own thing. I'm not sure I have a routing for that. Anyway, we'll figure it out. So that's a noise layer, but I thought that doesn't really sound like breath. Breath isn't like tss, so bright. So I put the filter on and darkened it down to be more like air brightness. So I darkened the air to make it sound more natural. But then I forgot my initial attack. So I want to try making another noise and having it be just at the beginning and have a fast attack. So right now D is modulating C, and it's not really doing anything. So I really want C and D to be their own thing. Okay, I might need to move these around to exactly get what I want. Maybe I'll try swapping these. So I'll make this one be the long and this one be the short. No, because now this... Oh. Here's an idea. Okay, so I want to switch these again. So this is going to be noise all the time. We're going to turn this one off. So we just have one noise layer. But we want it to spike right at the beginning. So I can actually repurpose the pitch envelope. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm not going to use it on pitch. So I'm going to turn off the destination to all of these. But I'm going to do the destination to the filter frequency. So I can make this happen. And if I turn up this, now this will apply to my filter. So now there's a little extra burst of air at the beginning. And let's just see if this sounds good with this. First of all, pitch envelope we need to turn off. Right idea, just a little much, so I'm going to dial it down. And now there's just this little puff of air at the beginning, and then a sustaining air sound with my flute. So, that's a flute. Maybe you had some similar ideas, maybe you had some better ideas. If you had other ideas about ways to get some of that sound, throw them in the chat. But I'm going to wind this down. I am on fire coding my new algorithmic music project, and I basically have that giddy... I don't know if you're a programmer, maybe you get this with music too. I get it even more with coding, where you get on a jag where like for 12 hours in a row, I can feel like my hair is on fire with one idea after another that I want to make work. And it's a very exciting time. So the fruits of that, again, are going to happen next Wednesday in the evening, along with coding performances by 2 of my students from the new school, who are awesome artists in this realm as well. Cool. Other coding, I just do Super Collider these years. I've, half learned a bunch of languages over the course of my life, but only one every 5 years. I'm digging into processing though. I'm going to have some kind of live visuals for next Wednesday that I'm going to do in processing. And so my rest of my afternoon is processing tutorials. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thanks a bunch. I'll see you Saturday. Thanks to those couple of you who've just sent me donations. Really appreciate it. If you're new here and you're not a follower of this channel, go ahead and hit the heart above if you want to see more of this stuff in the future. And hope you all have a great couple of days, and keep in touch.